Welcome back to this little wild studio. A few weeks ago we played with some blue pencils and drew a peregrine. This week I'm back playing with my blue pencils again, another 20, and this time I'm going to be drawing a blue jay. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see further videos from me. The full video can be found within Hedgerow, and I hope you enjoy drawing this blue jay with me. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. Let's go. Okay, welcome back to this little wild channel of mine. This studio where it's currently hot and sweaty, but a little grey out. We've just had a little bit of rain and I think there's going to be a bit more to come yet. Now, a few weeks ago on this channel, we did a swatch and sketch with blue, and we did a peregrine falcon. I'll show you that in a minute and link to that video as well. And doing that, I discovered that I had 60 blue coloured pencil between Polychromos, Prismacolour, Luminance, Pablo, Lightfast. I think that's all. I do have other coloured pencils, but I don't include those in my regular drawers. So today I thought I'd take another 20, just a random 20. Some of them need sharpening, some of them I've hardly used, like some of these Prismacolours. Not that one, this one and this one for sure. And I want to draw another blue bird, and I decided on a blue jay, who we don't have here in Australia, but who are just incredible looking beings. So I thought that might be a nice thing to do together. Now, this is what we did last time. Let me find it. This is my YouTube sketchbook now. Let's see. Last week we did wolf. The week before we did zebra. And we did a couple of weeks of robins. We did a kookaburra. And we compared Mars Lumograph by Stadler and Faber-Castell Pit Matte Graphite using a lion eye, and this was the one that we did before. So peregrine falcon, where I just chose 3 random colours from this random amount of 20 pencils. And we could do the same thing. I think that's a nice set out. But, you know, I like to change things up a little bit. So this time I'm going to sketch the blue jay across the middle, which is not always the easiest thing to do, particularly with a hardback sketchbook, but that's okay. It's a sketchbook, we can play in it however we would like. Sketch first, or just a light sketch, and then when I click my fingers, it'll be here. Okay, and just like that, with the magic of television or YouTube, have a blue jay. I nearly said a Stella's jay. A blue jay, all ready to have some blue added to it. If you'd like to see how I sketched that out, and it really didn't take all that long because of the way that I teach and do sketch myself, from big shapes to small shapes, sculpting down, you're very welcome to come over to Hedgerow and see the entirety of this lesson. If you're more interested in doing this sort of sketching though, and taking it just a little bit further, not to a full drawing, but just a little bit further to this, then my course Drawn to Wild focuses on that, and you get 52 lessons around that. It works out about $3 a lesson. You can take it over a year, you can take it over 52 days, whatever floats your boat, you go at the speed of you, and you have lifetime access to that. Right, so I'm going to start swatching. I have sharpened all my pencils, and people often ask me what sharpener I use. I use a Derwent Super Point. It's a little crank handle one, and I've had this one for maybe 6 years, and she's never let me down. She's wonderful. Whereas I've had an electric one I purchased. I mean, this cost me maybe $15, $20. I've purchased an electric one for like $70, $80, and it lasted 5 minutes. So yeah, that's a nice easy one to use. Alternatively, any little sharpener that you can get anywhere is going to be great. Okay, you're just going to get differing levels of points. This one gives me a nice long point. So now I'm going to do swatching around, and I like order. It's the way my brain works. I like to have rows of things. I'm going to mix things up a little bit today. I'm trying to not grasp onto that so much and just, you know, have a nice gentle amount of swatching, because I find swatching incredibly relaxing. And if I'd like to enjoy even more relaxation around it, I think a good way for that for me would be to relax my need to have control over where they sit exactly on the page, right? So, and I've got 20 pencils here. So if I get 10 on one page and 10 on the other, that's 5 there. So I'll make sure I have a fairly even amount of different types of pencils on there too. 6, 8, 10. So I've got a Pablo, I've got one. I'm going to switch out one of the luminances. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that should be right, I think. I think we've got a nice mix of them, and then I'll label them all as well. But all right, here we go. I've got a Prismacolour blue slate. Now I think I'm still going to go with squares. I don't want to go completely out of control. We'll see what happens, eh? Just go with the flow, Natalie. It's okay. Oh, this is a lovely colour. I don't tend to use Prismacolours much because they're soft, and I like a quite firm pencil. So what's the difference between soft or waxy pencils and harder pencils, you might ask? Well, it's the binder that holds the pigment together. So waxy pencils are usually softer because wax is softer than the oil which is used to bind the others. So there's actually a bit of a combination of the two in most pencils, but some pencils are much waxier. So this one here is a Prismacolour, and it's a very waxy pencil, so it's a soft pencil. Okay, and that was blue slate compared to a Polychromos, which is harder, and I actually prefer that. Oh, how random do I want to go? I don't know. I'm gonna do this. Who knew, right? Who knew this was going to be such a challenge for me? And this is one of my original Polychromos, which I got when I was about 16. So the number is 143, but it may not still be called this. This one's called Deep Cobalt on here. They changed the names of them a little bit in the century since I was 16. Feels like it. So with the swatching, I'm doing just a really basic square. I'm mostly working on the side, as you can see. I'm turning a quarter every now and then, so I'm keeping my point a bit. I'm laying less pigment down on the right side and more on the left, which gives me an idea about how dark a pencil can go. And I'm not pressing hard. That's the other thing. We don't want to press hard when we're building layers up. We want to go slow for a number of reasons. Primarily the health of your hand, so you don't want to be extending and pushing on those ligaments a lot. And when you're working on your subject, you might want to use your eraser to pull up colour every now and then, and it's harder to do if it's really deeply inground. Okay, and now I've got, well, the blue all over me already. Indanthrene blue from Polychromos. How am I feeling about the randomness? I don't know. It's not worrying me as yet. There's still time. This is quite a grey blue, right? So it's not a highly saturated, it's a little more muted. It's a very dark blue. It's nice though. It's sort of a nighttime blue, isn't it? Alright, I've got a Prismacolour here, which is light cerulean. You'll see that quite a lot of these colours are quite similar. Well, they're only maybe a shade or two away from, a shade or a tint away from each other. So that's a good way for me to remind you that you don't have to have all of the colours. You really don't need that many pencils. And I say that knowing full well that I have 60 blue pencils. But you can see how many of them I don't use, right? Because we end up having our favourites, and because the hues are so close to each other, you really just don't need all that many. Saying that though, they're nice to have. Alright, this is a luminance, and it is, whoops, middle cobalt blue. You know, I could have gone really, really crazy and done like random shapes. Maybe that's something for in the future swatching. The luminance pencils are also a little softer. They're nowhere near as soft, I don't find anyway, as the Prismacolour, but they are a softer pencil. And I think you can kind of see that too. See how you can see a lot more white here and here than you can on, say, this one and even this one. These are the Polychromos, so they're a little harder. They go down into the paper a little bit further. All right, we've got another Polychromos, another really old one. This is Peacock Blue. It's 153. It may well be called something else now. And it's a really lovely sort of turquoisey colour. Are my squares getting bigger? I think they might be. That's me, nervous laughing. Well, it's going to be an interesting page if nothing else, right? Turning my pencil to maintain that point, just doing multiple layers over on the left where I want it to be a bit darker. Then we've got another Prismacolour, and this is Indigo Blue, so a nice dark blue. These are just so soft. There is a huge difference in how they lay down, how they feel laying down. I really admire people who love using the Prismacolour. I struggle with them a little bit, just for the way that I use a pencil. But by the same token, I love my Polychromos so much that I don't feel the need to try and befriend the Prismacolour all that much, and I really probably should give it a better go. Polychromos do tend to be much more light fast overall, but when you're working in a sketchbook, it really doesn't matter, right? Okay, now I've got another luminance, and this is turquoise blue. It's a really lovely colour, isn't it? But again, it's similar to this, right? Very similar. We have a Pablo, and Pablos have a higher oil ratio, so they're a nice hard one too. This is bluish grey. I say that though, and they're not as hard as Polychromos still. So Polychromos is still just that little bit harder. I do like the Pablos. I don't have a full set of the Pablos. I have the ones that have been called to use. So all the browns and the greys, of course, and quite a few of the blues and the greens. But not a lot of the others in Pablo, because again, my Polychromos do everything that I need them to do. I have to say that the greys in the Prismacolour are good too. Okay, then the last one for this side of the page is Blue Lake from Prismacolour. I don't think there's a large difference between these two. And that was, what was that? Light cobalt. No, light cerulean. Okay, so that's those 10. I'm going to come over this side now. He looks like he's going to put his peanut on the checkerboard. So we have a Polychromos Prussian blue. This is a yummy colour. I really like this one. It's kind of a little desaturated. But there's a really lovely depth to it. In a different way, whereas this one sort of tends to lean towards purplish, this is a little greener. It's a really nice colour. Right, then I've got Prismacolour Violet Blue. Oh, it's quite violet. These two would go nice together. Polychromos, another really old one. This is called Oriental Blue. I don't think it's called that anymore. 149. It's nice, isn't it? It actually goes really nicely with the Prussian. Oops, that was a bit wonky, that one. Okay, then I have the only Derwent light fast that I've got for this spread, and it's Midnight Black. Which is black, right? So why have I got that in blue? Or is it a blue black? Oh well, let's have a look. I've got it out now. No, it's totally black. I don't really know how that one ended up in my blue drawer. But it's here now, and we're going to use it. Maybe I thought it said Midnight Blue. But it's a good way to show how even the darkest blues are very blue compared to black, right? There's a little shoe in that one. We've got a Pablo in Night Blue. Okay, interesting. What do you think? It's not all that random, is it, my page? I'm still seeing sort of just slightly shifted lines, but hey, it's a start. It's a start. All right, I'm going to do the magic trick again, and in a minute, in just a moment, everything will be labelled with what it is too. You ready? Ta-da! All labelled. Now I've chosen 3 pencils again. I think 3 is a really lovely middle ground to experiment and play with when you're doing something in colour pencil where you're not too invested in having exactly the right colours all the way along. I think a mid-tone, a dark and a light is the way to go. And I sort of went through here trying to think about what colours would work well together. And I've decided to go with the Prismacolour Premier Indigo Blue and the Prismacolour Premier Sky Blue Light, and then the Oriental Blue from Polychromos. Now I'm going to put the image of the Blue Jay up on the screen here now, and you'll have a link to that in the description. But as I said, the entire lesson is within Hedgerow if you'd like to come and join over there. We've got some very different blues going on in this bird. So on their back here is more of this sort of desaturated sort of colour, like perhaps this light cerulean. Whereas in the wings there, we've got very bright, like cobalt sort of blue, and then almost a turquoise or an electric sort of blue in there. And we've got a very dark indigo, almost black in parts of the beak and the mask of the bird. So the colours that I do in here aren't going to be an exact representation of what's going on inside the bird, but we're going to be able to play with those three, remembering that we can layer, so we can use our mid-tone value and our light tone value. So again, this one and this one, to create colours in between. And then of course we can do the same with our dark, using a light wash of that, I guess. And I think we just have a play and see what we can come up with, right? I've done that initial sketch, and so now is a matter of me refining the shapes that I have in there while laying colour down as well. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the peanut yet, whether I just leave that. But I think that, excuse my squeaky chair, I think that I'm going to start with where I always start, of course, is the eye. And I've got myself a little bit of glassine paper here to rest my hand on so I don't drag blue everywhere. You can use tracing paper, you can use just a piece of printer paper, whatever you'd like, just something to put a barrier between you and the page. So I'm looking at my reference now, and I'm going to come in dark with this indigo blue to get this dark mask happening on the face. Now for me, when it comes to doing sketches like this, sketchbook, the thing that I want to concentrate on is connection, not perfection. So I want to be thinking about how I can use my tool, my pencil in this case, to get an understanding of, to get the feeling of, to see more about this blue jay, right? So I'm looking at the little shapes that are made by the differences of value and the differences of colour too, but primarily the differences of value, remembering that value is light and dark. So where are the darkest spots, where are the lightest? And seeing how, if I recognize those shapes and try to translate those, describe them with my pencil, how I can get form. So shape is 2-dimensional, flat. Form is 3-dimensional, round. So in this eye, for example, it's a very round form, and the catchlight that we can see rounds around the eye itself. So we want to think about the shape of that catchlight, right? And then we've got the most beautiful eyeliner. And then always it's layers. It's difficult to do any type of artwork in a single layer. You generally need to come back over it at least once more, but often many, many times more. And that's kind of the joy of it too, because you get to practice seeing values, dark and light, and thinking about how each stroke of pigment that you put down interplays with the next, and make adjustments along the way. So the more darks that I put down, as I put lights down as well, and I adjust to add more darks, the more darks I want to add in too. So it's just this bit of a dance backwards and forwards. Now looking at this beak. So you can see using the Prismacolour that it's quite soft. So I'm losing my point fairly quickly even though I'm still rotating. It's a lot softer than the Polychromos, which is not a bad thing, just something to note and get used to. So we don't have to use these colours by themselves, we can use them in conjunction with others, so we can build up different layers of colour, different depths. Don't forget that we're looking inside the mouth there at a bit of a 3/4 angle so we can see the inside of the mouth as well. So rather than pressing hard, go over and over the same place. That will bring more pigment into the paper surface, going down into the tooth of the paper, rather than pressing hard. Look, we've got a little blue jay starting to appear already. So note the feathers on the comb of the head there. Over the top here particularly. This area here is quite light, so I want to come in with a layer of the light colour first. Now I'm working kind of awkwardly so that the book stays straight for you to see, but move your book around. Make life easier for yourself. And I can bring that colour down onto the beak here as well. And come in a little bit over this dark here. This is quite light here. There's a bit of the mid-tone value around the sides here. And we're just going to build up the layers. So I want to try and move my pencil as much as possible in the direction of the feathers. This is just a sketch, it's not a really detailed drawing, but doing little things like that really help to add to the realism. I'm going to come down and do this whole cape that he's got here. Alright, let's get the light one out. And this is not going to be the right colour up here either, but I think it's going to be a nice in between. And then let's come in over the mid-tone. So this is a waxy pencil going on top of an oil-based pencil. But you can see that it's giving us a lot more depth to that now. Now you can see I've still got quite a bit of paper tooth shining through. I don't have much of an issue with that either. If you don't like it, then it's just a matter of building up more layers. You do not have to press really hard to get rid of that. You can just build your layers up. I'm coming back now with that mid-tone value, which is the Oriental blue, just to darken up a little bit more. We want layers, we want layers. And we want to bring a little bit of that in here. I can see a few little feathers in here are a similar colour. I also want to go over the dark a little bit more. Alright, so now these feathers, I want to use my dark to almost give us a roadmap of where we want to put the rest of the colours, right? So there's some very whites there. We're going to use the page white for that. And again, this does not have to be perfect. We want to get the feeling of, so we want to notice, but I'm not going to spend 20 hours on a wing, which is what is necessary if you want to get really detailed. Despite seeing, 60 minutes flashed up as 60 seconds on socials, etc., things take time, and that's such a beautiful thing to do. But you don't have to do that either. You can still create a realistic drawing by getting the general gist of things down, getting the feeling of, paying attention to the way that things move around, so that you're getting the shapes right, the value right, but not necessarily all the details exact. I have darker colour on these areas here because they're going to be quite a lot darker than the other. Perhaps down this way too. So I say a wash in the same way that you do a wash in watercolour. So it's just a very light layer. So in watercolour it's a diluted layer. For this it's a light layer, knowing that it's going to work with another area. Okay, I want to get some of the lighter areas in now, so I'm going to use my light pencil and get some of these lighter feathers in, or markings of. Keeping an eye on my reference all the time. Making judgments about what I want to be different from each other, what colours, what areas I want to appear different. Okay, now with my mid-tone, I'm popping in here just to go over the process of what's happening with the wings here. It's just a bit of a lengthy process. Like everything else, the good things take time to do, and we don't want to rush this process. So utilising the 3 pencils, I take my time to build up layers where I see the different shades, the different tones in the different areas. So I'm looking at the darkest parts where a lot of those markings that are already down are, and then coming in with the mid-tone to define and sculpt a little more, to add some of those vibrant and deeper blues. And then I'll come in with the lightest tone to go over the top to create like a third or a fourth tone essentially, and then backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, using the darker pencil to define, sculpting with the mid-tone and coming in and amplifying with the lighter. Just lots of layers. This is a lengthy process. It takes as long as it takes, and you should always work at the speed of you. And this is one of the reasons that I don't do sped up videos at all, even just to show you what's going to happen, because it tricks our brains into thinking that we can go that fast, and we actually really can't. We can't do 60 hours of work in 60 seconds. Not that this is taking anywhere near as long. The full lesson for this inside Hedgerow goes for about an hour and 10 minutes, so I'm cutting quite a bit out from what you're seeing here. But always the process is the same. You've seen me build up the colouring, redefine the shapes, create realism in the head and shoulders there, and it's exactly the same process in the wings.
just takes time. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of bird song while you watch some of this process. And just know that although you're going to see skips happen, it's really exactly the same thing as what I'm doing here now, just repeated over and over until I get the sort of realism, value, colouring that I want. All right, enjoy.
So she keeps going. This is usual for me. Okay. All right. I think that's a bit of fun. I enjoyed playing with Blue Jay. I hope you did too. Let me know always if you have any questions. Pop them down in the description. Also in the description will be this sketchbook that I'm using, what pencils I ended up with to create this gorgeous fellow, as well as a link to Hedgerow, which is my community for women artists, and Drawn to Wild, which is a place for everybody to learn how to sketch wildlife. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a delightful time. And if you do end up doing this Blue Jay and swatching and you use Instagram, then go ahead and tag me, because I'd love to see. All right, make sure you like and subscribe so that I can keep building this channel and keep bringing you more lessons. And I will see you. Put the pencil down. I will see you next week. All right, bye. Be well.
Thank you so much for joining me. Keep sketching, stay curious and compassionate, and let your creativity connect you to what is wild and wondrous.